Hello, Lubna.
Good morning, Hawa.
Hi, good morning to you.
Good morning, everyone. We're so happy that you're tuning in. Finally, we are
Yeah,
reunited.
reunited. Yes, so happy in this winter land of Long Island in New York.
Winterland.
It's very, very cold, but I'm very, very happy. It's also my birthday month.
Oh, that's
So,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're
Best month of
Sagittarius.
the year.
Of course.
Absolutely not. I'm a Capricorn.
Oh, that's right.
Blasphemy. I
Oh my
am
God.
a Capricorn.
Yeah.
I forgive you.
Yes, I was thinking, okay, how can I come back from that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to.
How do I come back?
Um, so
Okay.
yeah, for
Today,
today, I'm really excited about this topic. Lubna brought it to me and I was very intrigued. So we will be talking about the stories we tell ourselves.
yeah.
Yeah,
So the idea is that there are so many narratives about oneself that we carry with ourselves. And I was
yeah.
wondering, what is the one story that you've carried with yourself the longest?
Mm,
And are there any parts of it that you think they're inherited from culture, family, survival versus chosen?
yeah. So I guess for me, definitely, I think as a child growing up in the environment that I did, I'm thinking more outside of my own family influences in you, and I'll go into that later on. But I think the immediate thought that I had when you asked that question and we were talking about this topic was how much I place so much value of the story I tell himself. The story I've always sort of predominantly told myself, and it's been this sort of reoccurring theme, is that I'm smart. I place a lot of
Mm,
value on being a highly intelligent person, and a lot of that is just rooted in a lot of academic struggle that I had in the beginning of my life and feeling very intellectually inadequate and inferior. And
struggles imposed by others?
yeah,
Okay.
definitely, because as I think a lot of people have, I really love just connected to this conversation. I've really loved how people are talking a lot about neurodivergence versus neurotypical and sort of broadening that term. And it feels increasingly more applicable to me, just given my experiences as a child, which was, I wasn't the best test taker. Standardized testing was a big thing when I was growing up. And I don't know if that's necessarily the case now. I don't have kids, but for me, that was a huge thing growing up in the suburbs in New Jersey. And even in fifth grade, not fifth grade, even in elementary school, I remember they were always kind of testing your sort of IQ and
Mm,
aptitude. And I have so many vivid memories and experiences of elementary school and feeling very inadequate and teachers kind of questioning my intelligence. And I was put in special ed classes. I was actually put in special education classes because I was not,
wild.
yeah. And I vividly remember actually asking my mother a couple years ago, like, I just want to like clarify, Mom, was I put in these classes and were they called special ed? Like, I just had it in my mind, like, no way. Maybe it was some other term. And she's like, yes, Hawa, you were put in these classes. And it was actually personally a very humiliating experience for me because, as I've shared with Lubna, they would often take you out of your regular classes, the normal classes. And so it wasn't, some of it was after school, like there was after school help,
Mm.
but they would often take you out of the regular classes you were in. So if it was like, I don't know, reading comprehension, they'd be like, Hawa, XYZ, and they would like take you out of the class and put you in with this, the special kids. I
This
can
is
say that because I was
crazy.
a special kid.
Whoever designed this, they're not in the right mind, I have to
Yeah.
say. I have to say.
Um, and so yeah, and we'll go into it, but it's something, as I said, it's really stuck with me. And I feel like
Mm,
the story that I'm always having to tell myself is that, you're not stupid, Hawa. You are intelligent. You are,
mm.
capable in any sort of intellectual or academic pursuit. Now I'm not in school, so for me it's more a personal intellectual pursuit, or if I'm on a job and just making sure I feel like, am I smart enough? Am I smart enough? So I don't know if that's specifically,
No,
like
it's
what you're thinking about.
yeah.
That's the immediate thought that I have, is that I just am constantly telling myself that like you are not, it's not constant. It's certainly as it isn't as loud as it was in the past, given the amount of inner work that I've done. And I don't feel stupid, and no one is stupid. That's not something that even if you are in those classes, you are not less intelligent than someone else who is.
Yeah.
It means nothing at the end of the day. But for me, I think that was a huge story of just being in an environment in which I was, ethnically, you know, yeah, and I think it's compounded by the fact that I was different in so many other ways growing up in the
Mm,
community that I grew up, which was very different from my family. That just added to this, probably made that
different
story
in what
bigger.
way? In what
Just
way?
ethnically, racially, religiously, culturally,
Okay.
you name it.
Right. Tick all the
You
boxes.
can take every.
Um,
So that's a huge story I think I tell myself a lot, and it's
so
sort of
is that chosen or that's sort of inherited by your circumstances and the way that you were
inherited. I definitely
inherited?
would say inherited. Yeah.
Which parts of your story today you think are chosen?
I think the story, I mean, there's so many stories. Yeah, this is a
Yeah,
very good topic because at first when you initially brought it to me, I was like, I don't understand. And now that I'm in it with you, I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, there's so many layers to this and so many directions you can go with it. I guess the story that I tell myself that is chosen, um, is that I don't know. How about you? Could you answer for
I think so.
yourself to kind of give
Because
me a little bit of, yeah,
yeah,
because
whenever I ask you, it's like
I
me trying to answer it in my head, and
that's
I'm like, if
clever.
she answers, maybe I can answer.
Yeah, I'm
That's the
like, no, I
thing.
need you. You
I'm
need me
cheating here. I'm really
to
cheating.
smart. Yeah.
Um, yeah, because definitely I think we reach a point in our lives, or depending on circumstances, I don't think everyone is the same, right? Like,
Yeah.
but certain circumstances maybe push you, accelerates that you revisit the narrative, especially
Yeah.
if the narrative doesn't serve you in new environments and new challenges. And I think, by virtue of just the real physical story of my life, like leaving my home country and having to go to the US at an relatively older age. I mean, I was 28, not 16 or 17, where you would be arguably more impressionable, more easy. It's easier for you to integrate and assimilate. So I walked into the US definitely with full awareness of a lot of cultural things, and picking up on things that worked for me, did not work for me, and there were a lot of conflicts
Mm,
between the story I grew up with and where I am in life.
mm,
And I felt really deeply challenged because I was a big fish in a small pond. Like, I'm Syrian. I grew up in Qatar. It's a very small country.
yeah.
And when we grew up, I want to say maybe the population of the entire country maybe was 800,000 people. So you can imagine within that population, the segment within which we belonged or interacted with is even smaller. So anything you would do in that environment is amplified, the good things and the bad things. So I walked into the US with that mindset, and not anywhere in the US, in New York, where everyone is a small fish, and trying to find my place and my voice and what it means for me to be in that new environment, sense of fulfillment, even achievement. I was very achievement driven for the longest part of my life. And I think, to answer the question more directly, the part that I think is really more survival shaped is the sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Like, constantly asking that question, where do I belong? Am I belonging here? It's actively in the brain, sometimes not so actively, but I can see it like resurfacing very softly in my life decisions, in moments of happiness or sadness. So it's like a very powerful theme. And um, I think it is survival because the question started in the family. I
Yeah.
don't think I felt very grounded there where
Mm,
that question was answered. So that remained with me, and I carried it to different contexts. And, the mere fact that, the story, like in Qatar, you're an expat
yeah.
until the end of your life. So Qatar wasn't really the home, despite all the physical aspects of it that made it seem like a home. But on an emotional, psychological level, we're told all the time it's not home, despite any attempts for you to build it as a home. So your effort really takes you nowhere.
Right.
So the belonging became amplified, the question. And then when the Syrian war happened, that ultimate dream home that my parents
Mm,
always had, and we inherited it, but in terms of like the emotional belonging, that's really gone. Or
yeah.
if anything, it's being destroyed actively. So you're seeing that also, disappearing. So the question really surfaced aggressively when I came to the US. and with it, the loss of like, being away from my family and all of these things. So at a certain phase in my life, definitely was a stronger narrative. Now the life has changed a lot for me. And I definitely found home in many different ways. I think the family is a big one. Although I've never thought that that would be it for me. Like I wasn't one of those who's like, if I get married and the husband and the
Right.
baby and no, God,
No.
no, hell no. No, like no.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there is comfort, there is something metaphysical in the presence of the warmth of a family that you're building, I guess.
Yeah.
And for someone like me with that background, I think that kind of answered parts of the question. So that's now moving forward to today about the narrative. I'm realizing it's also has an impact about how I relate to other people outside now the family and the friends circle. Um, do I belong to that community? What does it mean to be part of a community? I still sort of cringe at that idea.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm not into that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I wonder if it's related to this story, at least for me, of the community rejecting me, right?
Yeah,
In
I see what you're
Qatar, for
saying.
at
Yeah.
least, although I have amazing friends, everything was amazing. It's not like I struggled there at
Mm.
all. But like on a psychological, emotional level, you know that you're not it for them.
Yeah.
Like there is the them and there's us, and so there is that discourse. Um, so the spill over to my life now, definitely I'm not a distrustful person. It's not to that extent, but it's I wouldn't easily walk into a place. I'm like, yeah, that's my community, that's my family, like just people, strangers,
Hmm.
regardless of how many years I've spent with them. That's a very difficult emotional leap and psychological leap for me to make. And I think because of the belonging question, it sort of made an impression on my psyche that is a bit deep. The belonging is you cannot fully trust that the external environment will make it happen for you.
Mm.
So it's always transient. The belonging is
Yeah.
always transient. Um, so that's my answer.
Interesting. No, that's like perfect and very,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I guess, but do you feel like that belonging or that lack of us get out of me?
Want to see my
Like, yeah,
beautiful
I'm
face.
just like so listening attentively. It's just hard not to. You're just like, I am like, they're so good. But do you think also that I wonder too, because I'm comparing the different, because you've lived both in the Middle
Mm,
East and obviously in the United States in the West, and these are two very, very distinct cultures in terms of,
mm.
as we've discussed, Middle Eastern culture is very communal,
Yeah.
very tribal, right? And American culture is incredibly individualistic. So do you feel like also you've adapted some of that as well into the story you're telling? Because you talk about how
Mm.
you're kind of more, not as into the community and you don't feel that belonging. But I wonder how much of it is that individualistic culture influencing that a little bit, or
Yeah,
no, it's not as
no,
like
that's a brilliant
because it's
question.
always subtle. It's not like this sort of because I feel for me,
Mm.
I've never really had community other than the family. If you define the family, then yes, I'm very close with the family and my mom's side in particular, and my dad's side to a lesser extent as I've gotten older. But the American in me is incredibly individualistic. And when I was kind of
Mm.
like scoffing when she mentioned the word community, is I always, say I've never been a big fan of like big friend groups. I'm just not. I'm very yeah, I'm very American in that respect. I'm extremely individualistic.
No, I remember. I'm
And just like
smiling.
I have like two and a half friends, I jokingly say. Lubna's the one whole. But yeah, and I feel like that has
Mm.
anyway, back to you. I'm just curious if that has contributed to it for you as
It
well.
might
The
be.
hesitation is just
Yeah,
now you're in the Western world, in the culture
where
world,
it's amplified,
where
right?
it's
Like
extremely amplified.
it might be. It really, as in, yeah, if that's the case, it's definitely more subconscious level, the way the lifestyle is just
Yeah.
like made that disconnect even more prominent, more palpable. It could be.
Yeah, because I'm kind of connecting it more to my own family now and my experiences in growing up in New Jersey, in the United States. and beyond sort of the story of intellectually inferior.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the interesting enough thing for me is that I never felt too different for the most part, despite the fact that I was in many ways. I didn't feel I was different, but I was fine with that. That wasn't necessarily my issue and didn't contribute to any story for me in that respect. I think for me it happened more when I went to college,
Mm.
where I was really eager. The story that I was trying to tell myself then is like, finally, I was content with the upbringing that I had. I had no issues being different from others based on these sort of superficial whatever identity markers. It was more once I went to college, I was like, wow, I'm going to meet other sort of Muslim kids. I'll be able to
Mm.
meet other people who had similar cultural backgrounds to myself, with it being more sort of connecting us with the religious element of it, which was something that was really exciting to me going to school in Chicago. And so I actively, my first month or week that I started school, I went to MSA, which stands for Muslim Students Association, and I was really excited to meet, these people that I wanted to meet. And I did meet two of my close college friends out of that, so it was well worth it. And I met other wonderful people as well. But I remember how I never really got too involved within the organization because I was sort of surrounded by people who grew up around people like them, right? Like they
Mm.
all, and I didn't, right? And interestingly enough, the irony of that too is the two close friends that I have who have Muslim backgrounds also didn't grow up around Muslims. So that's something to be
Interesting.
said,
Yeah.
right? And when I went into MSA, again, I have a vivid experience of I went into this sort of like girls' night out. We went to go get dinner on Devon Street in Chicago, which is um, it's a very famous South Asian community. And the street just has a lot of great Indian and Pakistani restaurants. And I remember I went with these Muslim American girls, and just how sort of rigid they were.
Mm.
They were extremely rigid in their belief system, and the terminology I used was wrong, or all these different things, and it was just so off-putting. And
Wow.
so it was like I created, so in some ways, I don't know if it was chosen, but I will say I did create this story for myself of like, I'm going to go to college. I'm finally going to meet other immigrant kids. I'm going to create this community for myself. And I was so excited. And it was ridiculous. I mean, it's just, as I said earlier, a second ago, it was all these people who were really rigid in their belief systems in a way that I did not grow up that way,
Mm.
despite having devout Muslim parents, but it was a completely different ballgame. So it's like this story that I had created just fell apart immediately. I was just
Mm.
so
Wow.
I had so much disdain for how, I was being treated, or how, and it's subtle. It wasn't like they said anything rude. It was just kind of like, and they were all hijabis, which is fine, but I was not, obviously. And so I left. I was like, I can't, this is a story that has ended. The beginning and the end was within the
One
same night,
night.
one night, So I guess to your point, yeah.
Extravagant.
So interestingly enough, you're right. Sometimes the stories you tell yourself can be like in one day, or it can be it
Yeah.
built up. It definitely was built up over the summer. I was really excited, and I got to know many of them outside of the organization, which I think made it better. I think that's another thing why I'm sort of anti-community and anti-groups is something happens when you enter
Mm.
these sort of spaces where people kind of become this crazy unified
Mm.
entity. And if you don't agree, or you don't sort of fulfill or are part of these different ideas that they have, then you are kind of outside of the group, even if you have all those sort of right identities.
And to let people
So,
know, I'm just to your credit, like
yeah,
you're one of the rare people I met that you are super like truth seeker. Like you've
yeah,
explored with so many different communities and ways of thinking, ways of right, like
yeah,
you're very adventurous. Like I feel like if
yeah,
someone doesn't know and hears that, they'll think, you're someone like just sitting there, like no, not for me. You're actually you put yourself out there. I
yeah.
don't, I don't. But you do. You
Yeah, yeah,
actually tried, different ways of thinking. I remember like very
yeah.
actively for years.
Constantly, yeah.
So that's like when you say these things, aside from you being my friend and me knowing you, it comes from a credible place because you've tried it. It's
Yeah.
not just one impression based on thought, it's based on experience.
Yes.
And I agree with you about
Yeah.
like the uniformed kind of the nuances of thought die.
They
sometimes
die.
accumulate.
Yeah, it's not thoughtful anymore. And so I guess that's a big story too. I mean, in talking about that experience, it just really made me realize that for me, the story that I've told myself is, yeah, I'm very much a truth seeker. I
Mm,
think, but I don't think that's a story. I think that's such a part of who I am. I don't know that is my
mhm,
being. I don't know if that's like, because I think I struggle with the idea of the
mm.
story I tell ourselves because are we lying to ourselves sometimes with the stories we tell ourselves? Are we being a bit delusional? Which I am delusional, period. I think delusional can be a
Who's
good thing.
not?
So that's the
Who's
story I
not?
tell myself. It's just like I can get and be anyone or anything I want. And I really do
Manifest
believe
it.
that. I do believe,
Manifest it.
I mean, I think that's a huge part of me. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
Bart, I do believe. And in terms of what you had asked me earlier about the
Mm.
stories I've chosen, or were they chosen for me, was the question you were asking?
Yeah. What parts of them you framed, you created actively or not so actively versus inherited also in the family?
Oh yeah, I think
Right.
being, Muslim, right? You inherit the story of like I am the daughter of Somali parents,
Right.
and that means I am Muslim, and that implies XYZ in terms of how I'm supposed to practice, live, breathe, think, etc. Um, and sort of deviating a little bit from that,
Yeah.
as we'll get into in this show. But
And while
I
we're
was definitely chosen.
episodes,
That was a story that was no, but that's thank you. Now I kind of feel like I can answer the question better. Is that yeah, I think a chosen story for me is more connected to again identity of like
mm,
I am Somali, and Somali culture is a very tribal society. I have not inherited so much of that thinking just by naturally being born and raised in the United States. But for me, I definitely feel that that was a story that, and that's a story, I think that's a story that we're all born into in some ways,
yeah.
right? Stories that you're born into.
Yeah.
So that's how I think of it when I think chosen is for me. I was very much taught, you are a Somali daughter, and that implies certain things of how you treat your parents and how
Mm,
you treat others, but particularly your parents or your aunts and your uncles, how you behave. Um, and then I guess within my own family expectations of, professionally, personally, all
mm.
these things of like, yes, you should be married by now, Hawa, and it's like, I'm not.
So
Where's
putting
my
it out
grandchild, as my
there.
mother says to me every week when I visit them. And I'm like, I'm wondering too, Amina. I don't know what to tell you. And just that expectation and that that is a story that I feel like has
Mm.
been chosen for me. Does that
That,
answer?
oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Beautiful, I think, connection to that is the question about what parts of your story you feel they help you expand and what parts are limiting you.
So I think I will always be forever grateful to my parents. I know this is something I've kind of recently sort of come together and have chosen to believe, and is the right way to believe, I think. But I'm very grateful that my parents raised me in an environment in which I was different from everybody else, because I think
Mm,
that really contributed to me being extremely open-minded and adventurous, as you said, in terms of my openness to different ideas and people and so forth. So I think that choice that they made to raise me in a town where it was not, so many people in the 90s, so many Somalis were moving to Ohio. Obviously, there's a large community in Minnesota. We have no connection to Somalis in Minnesota, but my aunt moved to Ohio and Columbus, which has a sizable Somali community, you know, or just being around other Somali families. I mean, like I grew up in a town, no Somalis, like in like a 30-mile radius, you know what I'm saying? If not more. And if there are, it's all these small families. There's just not a lot in the tri-state area, a couple in Connecticut. They could have opted for that idea of just like, oh, we need our children to be around other
mm,
Somalis. And they didn't. They're like, this town is safe, good education system, like a lot of immigrants. It's like, okay, this town, this is a great place to raise our children for their future. And in many ways, they made the right choice. But I really am that part that they chose for us, at least for me, I am very grateful. I wouldn't be sitting here with you. I wouldn't be,
yeah.
have had the experiences that I've had with so many different types of people if it weren't for that choice that they made. So that's
Mm.
a part of my story that I'm grateful for and I feel like has really
And it helps
contributed
you
to,
to expand clearly.
yeah, my
What?
expand my consciousness, my soul, my interactions with others. There's no way I could have, again, there's no way I could be talking to you if it weren't for that choice that they
Yeah.
made for me. And I'm really proud of that. Whereas I think a lot of people struggle, right, with
Yeah.
the fact that they grew up in communities. And I can't speak for my siblings per se. I can't speak for other people in my circumstance. It's just for me, there's no way I would have been able to be who I am if it weren't for that choice that they made.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to them
So
for
shout
that.
out to
Shout out to
Osman
Amin and
Amina.
Usman for raising me in an incredibly white, waspy community. Small number of Jewish families too, who was friends with,
Yeah.
because we were all different. But yeah, I guess. How about for yourself?
For myself, but you're dodging the question about the limiting parts. What limits you? I mean, I can talk about what I think helps me expand, but that'll give you time to
Yeah.
think about the limitation.
The limitations of the story of
What parts of your story, any part, your general
chosen,
narrative, yeah, that you feel is limiting you today, is not helping for that expansion.
I don't think I feel limited. Is that crazy?
No, that's
I
fantastic,
don't think I
Hawa.
feel limited. I
Yes.
don't really think that I do. I have
Okay.
no fear. I
We all
I'm
aspire to be
procrastinating. I mean,
Hawa.
yes. No, I don't think I live, speaking of delusion, right? Let's bring that topic up again. No, I just don't think I feel limited. I really don't. I think I'm my own worst enemy in terms of my lack of commitment
Okay, fantastic.
to my like spiritual practices, as we talked about, and my own sort of
Mm.
procrastination and a little bit of laziness. But that's on me. But I don't feel limited by circumstance. Listen, I think that's also because I'm a very privileged American. There's so many elements of me that are just extremely privileged that allow me to have that attitude.
Examples
I think
of
class
Okay.
privilege, educational privilege,
Yeah.
professional privilege, nationality privilege, like that enables me to have this probably mentality. Though I think this is something that anyone can achieve because again, delusion. Just the power of delusion and willpower, but no, I actually don't feel limited. Maybe if you give me an example, I could potentially, but I still think
Yeah.
no, I don't think I have. I don't feel any limiting
Parts of the
limitation.
story that helps expanding. Yeah, definitely based on delusions, I think. But the idea, I think it helped that I was a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
Because I carry this like little bit in my head. I can do anything because, like I was special. I am special. Not special in like a cheap, I guess, materialistic.
But unique and capable and
Yeah, I can handle it. Like,
yeah.
and maybe sometimes I cannot. And then after I try, I realize, oh, I cannot handle it.
But the
But
fact
I
that
put
you
myself-
have that out, yeah, the fact that you even did it, yeah.
Yeah, I put
exactly.
myself out there, because I think at the beginning, when I was way younger, like in my childhood, there was that sense that, I can conquer anything. And that came because like it's so easy to be in the spotlight in an environment like that.
Yeah.
So if you do the littlest, most mundane things, it's seen as special. So that builds sort of a foundation, like false sometimes, self-belief.
Yeah.
Which is, there was a lot of work out there about the positive impact of self-belief.
Oh my God, it's
The
all
manifestation.
yeah.
It creates that almost snowball effect where you attract certain good things and then you build on these things and so on. So there is value. And I think that's what helps me expand.
Yeah.
That I've done it before and that it could be a very small thing. Like I go back to like really literally like high school, like doing little exams, like things don't matter that much. But I'm like, if I did that, I can do this next big thing now when I'm 38-year-old and circumstances are very different, but it gives me ammunition.
Yes.
It helps. The parts that limit, I think the lack of grounding, that sort of that narrative in my head from my upbringing, that is missing. So maybe if a movie is made about my life and from a third person perspective, it could be seen as very privileged. I have
Right.
two parents in the household. A lot of people are raised with a single parent, due to divorce or death, like really severe circumstances. I have both parents, so that's a privilege.
Yeah.
But not but and in that movie, you can see like I had my siblings around me. Everyone was in good health. We were, comfortable, like we didn't struggle like other people struggled, maybe financially at least. So there are a lot of really beautiful blessings in our lives. So, you know, how the brain picks and chooses the things that could feed the narrative. And it seems like I picked and chose a lot of the things that feed the story, that the belonging is broken. So I think I keep on going back to that point because I feel it's an active question now in my life.
Belonging.
Yeah, not that I'm seeking it, but it just resurfaced recently because I was having other conversations with other people. And as I dug deeper and deeper, I'm like, yeah, maybe that's still a thing. I thought it's over, really. Especially with having a kid. I think I found a home in him. And I thought, so maybe that's a limiting narrative. That's a problem even.
That you still are like that topic, because you're saying you're not seeking it out, but it's something that
It's
it's
like
just a
a loss.
reoccurring theme.
It's like a loss. Like I have to make peace that with the fact that that's a loss in my life and fine.
But did you ever feel belonging? Because it sounds like you struggled with that even when you were in Doha.
Oh,
It was less.
yeah, I struggled with that in Doha.
Yeah.
And then nowadays it's definitely there is no struggle. I wouldn't describe it as a struggle. But I think in the background it is limiting me because I don't walk into certain opportunities because I fear the rejection.
I see what you're saying.
I'm like, this is a timed opportunity. Yeah, it's gonna last probably a year, 2 years, then something will come up where I'm not supposed to be here. Because that's the background that I grew up with in so many ways, despite efforts, and I put a lot of efforts to like specifically in achievement, thinking that achievement will equal to belonging, and that equation didn't work.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, so why put the effort?
But it didn't work right now. It's not like a forever.
Say again.
You're saying it didn't work. Like you were attempting to, then.
But the lingering effect that limits me today is that I opt out before it's time to opt out. Like I don't even allow myself to go to the opportunity, thinking
limiting belief.
Yeah. I think that
is a story you're.
What's your limiting belief?
I have none. Just
the delusion. No,
I honestly, I wonder too. There is that cultural nuance. There is that cultural influence, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm not trying to, because I think sometimes we all kind of put it on culture, even though culture is very influential or familial influences. But because it's not true, I actually take that back. It has nothing to do with that. I really do feel that I don't really have a limiting belief. Like I don't feel limit right now. That is not to say that that couldn't change.
Yeah.
But to me, it's also because I've done so much work. And not that you haven't. I'm not, or anyone for that matter. Because a lot of what you speak of is, self-belief, self-concept, a lot of things that I've been studying over the last 3 to 5 years at this point. And even when I was speaking of sort of the intellectual sort of stuff earlier in this conversation, that's not in me really, Though I was triggered over the summer at my last, I don't want to get too into it.
Well, let's get into it.
And I do think that was connected to the fact that I was going against my own purpose. Like I was going back into an environment. I don't want to spill the beans too much right now. But I was in a certain environment in which I was working with people who I was being triggered back to that childhood feeling. And I felt like I was going back into that story. Like that narrative was really dominant for me this year in a way that I hadn't felt in years.
The narrative being,
I'm a dummy.
Okay.
It's true, I did. And I was just feeling so inadequate intellectually, and and in terms of my expertise and my abilities, and I was so angry. But again, I do believe you take responsibility for how you feel. That's just my personal belief. And I realized that in hindsight, I was in an environment that I shouldn't have been. I didn't want to be there. My soul and my purpose, it knew. And I had left that environment for a year or two, only to go back into it and my body roaring at like, Hawa, why are you here? You shouldn't be here. And then I left. Well, I didn't leave, but it's, again, I'm being so vague. But I just realized, I look back at that experience and it's interesting. It's like that story did come back of just feeling really like really feeling, not smart enough, right? And it was really scary. It was really scary how real that feeling felt. Um, Given that I hadn't felt that way in years. But it goes back to the fact that I was in an environment that was well not suited for me. So fortunately I'm not in it anymore. And it was great in many ways too. I don't want to like
Yeah.
say all of this other stuff, but so I guess in some ways that might be an example of I was in an environment where I was feeling limited in that way. But I also think that was an important experience to have to know to not do that again. It felt like I will
Being
not
selective.
being selective. Like sometimes these things that happen, it teaches you something.
Yeah.
I think. But I
Agree.
don't know if the limiting, and maybe that is the limiting that still is there for me, that story. I don't think it is. I
But the
just think
circumstances might
it was
come again.
and it might, and I think I'm dipping. I'm not dealing with that ever again. That was like hell to the no.
You don't
I
want
think I really felt it was because I was going against my purpose and my soul. I was going back into something I didn't even want to do and I had left,
Yeah.
only to go back. So that's on me. Like I'm going back into this. So I guess that's it. But overall, I really, maybe in a part two, I'll think, but I really don't think I have limiting limitations with my stories. I am that typical American where I'm like, manifest destiny, like not in a fucked up way, but like, I'm not like gonna take land, but just in terms of like I'm not like I'm not like that. I'm not like, you know what I mean? But I do have that like all the work I've done around just like mindset. I've done a lot of work on mindset work. I'm going to add books that I'm going to include in this description of this or this the show notes that I think are really interesting because I'm very fast. I'm obsessed with that, and it connects back to the story you tell yourself.
100%.
And it's all and you can change the story at any moment though.
Yeah.
You can
there are
you can
exercises.
shift. Yeah, like you don't have to like you might have believed you're an unhappy, sad person, or you're an ugly person, or you're not a confident person, or XYZ, whatever it could be, and you can change that. It takes work. It's not like an overnight thing. But I think the story that I felt, I mean, I used to be very politically active in a very pseudo, not real way, when in my, late 20s, early 30s. And that was the story I told myself that I'm this political. I was not at all. I was like fake as hell, but it's just sort of like online lazy. But it's like this consuming subject for me and topic, and a very interest in something I studied when I was in college, and I was very passionate about that topic. And I would do some campaigns here and there. I volunteered a lot. I tried to always going back to what you said about being adventurous. For me, I joined a lot of so many different political groups. On the left, you can't even imagine organizations you've never even heard of, like from like democratic socialist all the way to communist. When I was in my early 20s, I was curious about libertarianism, like everything in the political spectrum I was open to. Libertarianism being as like conservative as I would ever go, and it being more like financially oriented, because of course it was. And how that was a story. That was such a story of my life. I was always such a political person, very politically motivated, and feeling like that was what's going to change the world. Politics is what's going to change the world. Like
the seeking
revolution.
Justice?
Yeah, seeking justice in politics. And seeking equity and seeking equality and changes in this sort of world that we live in. And that was a huge part of my story. Ever since I was a kid, I think I was so curious. Like 9/11, the war in Iraq, like I was always, I was head of Amnesty for like terribly so, the chapter when I was in college. Like that was such a huge story of mine. And that just collapsed for me in my 30s. And I just was like, no, this is not the story I want to be a part of. For me, my path is a different direction. It's not the material world. It's a different plane, as I always say, if you watch the other episodes. But that was a huge story. You've seen that.
I've seen
that
evolution.
I met you. Yeah. I was just like super into so many like things, like, and now particularly like Me Too, I think I was really like, as a lot of women were at that age. And now for me, that is absolutely not a part of my story, which isn't, like that was such a huge part of my identity. I really cared about that. I didn't care about the jobs I had. It was always just these like cushy corporate jobs that I really could care less about, but allowed me to live in New York, which was a huge goal of mine. And I achieved that. All I did was just generally bitch and moan on the internet, join a couple of groups, volunteer, campaign, But that's all I cared about. That's all I consumed. And it was like anyone who knew me knew that about me. That was a story. That was very much a story externally and internally. And it's just funny now that we're in this conversation where absolutely not. Like, I don't watch the news. I know what's going on a bare minimum, and then I dip out. If I'm at when I'm at my parents' house, because they have cable, because of course they do, because they're baby boomers. But like the news is on, CNN, click. I don't want to see that, or I get up and go somewhere else. That's not a part of my that's not a part of my life's journey anymore. I think, and I recognize that there's a lot of privilege in that, and there's a lot of reasons why I don't participate in the way that I once did. And I think we can do a different kind of episode on that. But yeah, that was limiting. I feel like I was limiting myself in some ways with that. I was very boxed in, but now I feel so much more expansive in this direction. So that's why I feel like I don't have as much limitations now, as of right now, as I talk to you on December 7th, 2025. Who knows?
I think that enabled the expansion. Like trying these things, limiting yourself in that way. Maybe I don't know if I'm projecting or assuming things, but when I'm hearing you, it sounds to me like boxing yourself in that stage helped, trial and error. Like you tried things, nope, this doesn't work, and you move to the next, and you move to the next, to the point where you realize, okay, this needs to be more, to have an expansive lens through which I experience things and see things, but it's almost necessary to try that path.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like, no regrets. I have no regrets. Like I'm sorry. I'm always just like, hello, Lubna. I'm excited we're finally together. Yeah, so we're new at doing this together.
But I'm thinking about the topic and why even it's something I thought it would be interesting for us to talk about, because as you were talking about the working on yourself, right?
Yeah.
And we can definitely share maybe some of the experiences we had and the different modalities, because different things work for people differently. Sometimes it's bodily based, right? Somatic. Sometimes it's more brain, cerebral, psychological, psychiatry kind of route. Some people follow more psychedelics, and there are different paths. All I'm saying is that for me to suggest this topic is because definitely I'm seeing these narratives at a distance at this point in my life. I'm no longer as involved. And I think it's the result of working on myself. Whether I did want to work on myself or not, sometimes you're kind of pushed into that space because you have to. You're struggling really, and that was me a couple of years ago. And then that's when I realized I need to work on myself, the interior world. What is my vision for my interior world, not just the external? Because it's a moving post, it's a moving goal all the time, the external world. So I needed the grounding from the inside. All of this to say that this conversation is possible for me only because there is that distance. There's awareness and separation between me and the story, me and the feelings that came with that story. And I urge people who are listening to figure out the way that works best for them to create that distance, because that distance and separation allows for perspective, for real growth, and ability to hold yourself in compassion and awareness for whatever those experiences and those narratives will bring up in you. Because some of those narratives are really painful. Sometimes there are real grievances and traumas out there. And we're not psychological experts or healing experts in that way at all. But all I'm saying is that when doing those exercises, if you're doing them, if you're interested, as we're talking about our way of approaching our narratives, keeping the distance is a very healthy way to move forward and be able to reshape, reframe the things you've done. What you talked about, the limiting is less now, and it's more the expansion. There's a reason, right? You did a lot of that work. So that's, I think, is a necessary building blocks. And so back to a point you raised, which is brilliant, about the delusions. Because I was thinking about the topic, and there's a difference between self-awareness and self-mythology. Mm-hmm. What aspects of our stories are made up based on delusions, mythologies, convenient truths, and what parts are real deep understanding of ourselves? Like we were able to sit face to face with really hard truths about who we are, and actions we've done in the past. And that's a very different exercise from us covering it up with, easier shortcuts that help us and keep us going. And just to be clear, I think these shortcuts and mythologies are helpful.
Yeah.
A lot of it is constructed anyways. And this is another conversation whether truth is relative or objective. Is there one? I mean, there are schools of thoughts, positivism, that everything this is only real, and anything in the abstract is not. So, but the stories, the narratives are in the abstract. So does that mean you can construct anything and everything? Where is the limit where this is truth, this is what really happened, we can all see it and agree, versus this is mythology, this
About
is
oneself.
About oneself. And does it even matter? Does it matter to have the truth versus this is convenient, this is working for me, this mythology of me not belonging took me this far, gave me fuel to come to the US. So that's good enough.
It's making me think of the authenticity episode.
Oh,
A
yeah.
little bit. That feels very connected to that. I mean, I think can you repeat the first part of that question for a second? Because I have an answer to it.
The
story,
the difference between the real self-awareness, understanding of self versus self-mythology.
Yeah.
In our stories.
My methodology is one in which I'm always trying to stay in a positive frequency, in a positive state, right? For the most part. That doesn't mean I'm ignoring any negative feelings or emotions or experiences that I'm going through. But for the most part, I'm always going to try to take whatever I feel, whether it's past elements of myself or present, and making sure I stay on a positive trajectory, stay in a sort of either neutral at the very least, stay on a neutral position. In terms of the self, like awareness, like, because I do believe I'm having difficulty. I'm really trying to. It's a good question. It's a heavy question. I think a part of me, Lubna, feels that like I do feel like, speaking about delusion, as you were saying, I do feel that you can create any reality or idea of yourself that you want at any point. You can shift into that if that's what you wish, but not in like a psychopathic level.
What's the line there? So just not to interrupt, but like,
No.
for example, I'm thinking really of a real human being in my life who is textbook narcissist. Like psychiatrists that have seen this person, interacted with, they know this person meets the definition, the clinical definition of narcissism. This person genuinely believes, that they're so giving, they sacrifice so much in their lives. So all the narrative that completely is the opposite of what narcissism is all about, and they're altruistic, they've given so much. And there's
did they give much? Did they?
According to whom? From whose perspective?
Okay.
Maybe from their point of view, this is too much. If they brought a glass of water, that's the ultimate sacrifice because they went out of their way to get you a glass of water. For someone else,
it's nothing. I could do it right now, and it's like means nothing.
So that's my point, as in like, and I guess the next logical sequence to this thought is that, yeah, sure, we can create any internal narrative that suits us, makes us whatever. What's the impact on others? So that person has ruptured relationships with people around them, including family members, because there's such huge disconnect between their self-image and what many people around them think about this person. So what matters here? Their internal narrative or the external reality, I guess, the result of their action? Does it even matter? And to whom? They might be leading. Can we believe that this person is leading a fulfilled, meaningful life?
But who are we to say? But that's on them.
That's the question. Yeah. For me, is that what matters? If that's what matters, then sure, they can, right? Like, let's have as mythologies and delusions as we want, because ultimately it's your inner.
If the delusion should never, for me, it shouldn't hurt others. It's it's not.
Where do you draw the line? it's very clear when it's violence, for example, like
Yeah.
it's an action of aggression, but psychological hurt and pain,
Yeah.
especially in unequal power dynamic. Yeah,
yeah.
like maybe a wife that is more dependent financially and everything on a husband. The power dynamic is not
Yeah.
equal. Then where is the hurt really? How can you pinpoint? And same with a parent and a child, same with a sibling, maybe friends that are different statuses in life, or
Yeah.
so the hurts, okay.
Yeah, I think for me the line is if it negatively impacts others. Okay, right. And you're gonna say, well, what is the negative impact? How do
If
you
it's
define?
psychologically and emotional, maybe others will be.
No, that's tough. I
You
think
know?
that's extremely tough. I would say, listen, I would say obviously no, but that person, if their reality is like, I didn't hurt you, I didn't do that. That's if you're not on equal footing
Right.
with these people, then that's unhealthy. That's a false delusion. That's
So is
a
that a
problematic
signal?
delusional state.
So is that how we know that this is a delusion that is unhelpful? Is when others in the outside world do not validate that self-belief? How do we know that this
Because
is
that's
harmful?
complicated. Yeah, see, that's interesting because some people would say in certain cultures to be extremely arrogant is a line.
Yeah.
Even if it isn't financially, physically, emotionally, psychologically hurting other, but socially it's unacceptable, right? Yeah, that's tough. Like at what point
Yeah.
does your self-belief negatively impact others? I mean, that's tough for me. I
Yeah.
think self-belief above all else, but it should never infringe on other people's free will. That's a huge thing for me.
Oh, the free will.
Yeah, the free will, you cannot infringe on someone's ability to do whatever they, like at any point in which you are infringing on another person's ability to think, do, be, feel, that's where I would draw the line. For me, it's at the free will. I also think it's, yeah, the harm, physical harms. If there's any harm,
Right.
then yeah, that self-belief is invalid to me. It's irrelevant at that point. When I think of self-belief, I'm just thinking of extreme confidence, right? And believing wholeheartedly in whatever you want to achieve, do, think, etc. That to me is really important. Because I do believe ultimately you're the creator of your own reality,
True.
your
I
own
agree.
stories,
I agree.
past, present, future. But if at any point it infringes on others, then it's invalid. I would cut it at that.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
and I
It's
think
just in
narcissists,
practice.
yeah, it's hard. In practice,
In
it's difficult
practice
because
is hard.
there are these demonic people running around in a completely false delusional state thinking that they can just harm people. But I also think
But they don't harm. That's the.
they don't think they're harming. Yeah, they don't think
harming.
they're harming anyone. They're like, and they're in a completely like they're in a disconnection in some ways.
So
But I think you got to run away from them. You got to just dip. You got to get, and that's not easy for children or
So when you're
people
listening,
you're married to, it's very extremely complicated. I am not.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be facetious or like funny or like dismissive.
But you're funny.
But thank you. But I think also it's like you have to create. It isn't as if we can't live in a Barbie world, with everyone being. That's not realistic as well. Like that would be lovely story to tell. But I also think that there has to be a little bit of once one becomes an adult in these circumstances, you have to kind of decide how you interact with these people. And that's why I'm a big proponent, even though I came from a two-parent household and I'm very close with my parents and they have, a good marriage, I guess, or whatever the hell that means. But, they're compatible, and they're wonderful parents. And I am a huge proponent of no contact. Even though I have because I have friends or other family, I'm like, you have a right to do what's best for you when it comes to, and that's why in our boundaries episode, I loved what Lubna said in terms of, I think I do believe distance is an adequate boundary to have sometimes, because some people are not going to be open to whatever verbal boundaries you request, or not verbal boundaries, but any boundaries you request verbally. And if they're not going to respect it, you have a right to be like, okay, I'm out, or I'm just going to distance myself. You have a right to manage the relationship you see.
Yeah.
You see and want for your own personal well-being.
And
so that's the story. I guess, I think, that's true. What happens when those stories sort of, if you're self-belief kind of.
Yeah.
That's how I would sort of
Yeah, we definitely don't
argue it.
want to dive deeper. We don't want to dive deeper into the whole narcissism world because that's a whole different
Yeah.
universe of how to deal with it, create boundaries, what distance looks like. How you said run away. Yeah, what does that even look like when again the power dynamics are not equal?
Yeah, as a child, it's so
But
complicated
I
when
mean,
you're
I
social
brought it
media
as an
Yeah.
example because extreme examples sometimes highlight the deficiencies in the rules.
Yeah, no, good. No,
And
you're great at that.
yeah.
She's so good. She's like the philosopher.
I'm trained as a
She
lawyer,
should be
so
a
if you need
professor.
any lawyers,
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, good. I haven't thought of that because I'm like, everything's great. That fix your self-belief and be confident. All your dreams will come true. It's like typical American.
No, it's beautiful. That's why I'm here because like, I think that mindset is really helpful. It does cleanse a lot of the ancient world's wounds because people who come from places like our part of the world, I mean, Syria, I want to say, I don't know, it's been around 8,000 years, even I don't know how long it's been around. I should know this. I don't. But the point is, Damascus is the longest inhabited capital in the world. So we're ancient human beings. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, as a
I thought it was Baghdad.
No,
sorry, I
Damascus.
didn't mean.
Yes, excuse me, Hawa, you're my. But I'm not even from Damascus. But
We're terrible. You
yeah.
thought I was a Sagittarius. I thought Baghdad was the oldest. I really did. No.
Yeah, we need to mend this friendship. Work on this. But all of this to say, like, I definitely believe in ancestral wounds, ancestral inheritance, energetically, emotionally, psychologically. I mean, epigenetics have proven that it's not woo, whatever talk and like it's really now almost like mainstream science. So we know that for a fact. So when people like us come to, this cute little new nation, that has its moments of aggression and violence and
of course. Yeah,
but
it's
we're
psychotic. Speaking of narcissism and psychopathy, you know what I
mean? There is that positive, juvenile, almost youthful soul to the US that anything is possible, let's do it. Woo, woo. And I'm like, yes, bring that energy to my life, and it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful.
It's very powerful.
Everything flows around so quickly, including the dollar. But like the energy, the people's behaviors, they're very entrepreneurial, resourceful, they try new things. I feel like I'm selling the US to the audience. I mean, wherever you are, that's my take on the experience here. But I agree with that's why back to the way you're saying like self-belief and it will happen. It is a product really of like a whole system here that really also takes people far with that self-belief, the confidence, trying again and again and again. There's so much content about stories of especially entrepreneurs who did not give up, regardless if it's for profit, non-profit, but trying your own project and not giving up. Mistakes are okay. And here in this country, that's the ethos. And I feel if that's the self-belief, this is very powerful. We've seen results.
No, it's totally, and I think it speaks to, I was just literally thinking when you were speaking about how the beauty of this country too is that you can create any story about yourself at any point. The stories you tell yourself, yeah, you can tell yourself, but the beauty of America to me is you can tell any story you want at any point. You can change at any point. Like you can create anything you want, you can in America. In a way that you can't in so many other countries.
That's very true.
So I think there's something really powerful about that, despite how, we're in a downward trajectory right now. It's not a really good time, but for the most part, we have that underbelly of just like anything is possible at any point, which I think is very beautiful.
Hawa.
Lubna.
I would love for us to continue this conversation as we visit more questions about our stories.
Okay, yes, I would love to do that more. So this is a really good topic. I hadn't thought of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's perfect timing because I think the story that I've been telling myself now is so dramatically different than what I've been telling myself for 30 something years at this point. I feel like I very much am like a completely new person in many ways. And the story, I guess my question too is what do you think is the story you're telling yourself right now?
I'm at peace. This is my story now.
Yeah.
There's a level of quiet and peace and content that I don't think I've ever felt in my life.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really nice. I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you.
You've done the work too. It's not just we've both gone. We're going to do an episode on that as well.
Yeah. I
Every
think
time
so.
we do our episodes, we're like, we got to do an episode.
Yeah.
We got to do an episode on that. I think for me, the story that I tell is that I equally feel at peace in knowing what my purpose is. I think in the past, the reason why I was all over the place was I was always just trying to figure out what is it about this world that we live in. And that's why I was so hyper focused and interested in politics, because I thought that was the answer. And I know what the answer is.
Do you want to
share? No, not yet.
Not yet. Stay tuned.
I mean, the answer is, it's not like I know the answer. I know the answer now. I have to very much put it into practice. And so now I'm on that quest and in that path. And so that's what makes me feel very, that is the story of who I am. I mean, my story has always been, I'm a truth seeker and I'm on a quest, as you always say. But that quest has become clear to me. I think the quest before was all over the place. Now it's finally in this direction. And now I have to commit to it. More of the focus is around the commitment around it, but feeling really excited. So that's my story right now, is that I know the truth.
So,
or I believe to know the truth, and now I just have to
seek it out more. What matters.
Practice.
That's what
matters. That's all that matters.
That's all.
Yeah.
And we talk about episodes to make, but I would love to talk about purpose. Because
let's go.
Yeah.
I can't wait. That would be the best. And I think we can connect it to one episode we did about like the soul, when I keep mentioning, because we were like, we need to define the soul, because I think that is absolutely connected to purpose.
Yeah.
There's no purpose without recognizing that part of oneself.
So until next time, Hawa.
Stay searching.
Stay unscripted.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
And that's a wrap on this week's Unscripted conversation. Don't forget to subscribe to Unscripted with Lubna and Hawa wherever you get your podcasts, so you never miss an episode. We'll be back with a brand new one next Wednesday. Until then, keep it unfiltered, unapologetic, and unscripted.